Imagine waking up tomorrow and 99% of every human being on Earth is gone. Not from a war, not from a disease, from the sky itself. This isn't a movie. This actually happened. And you are only here today because a tiny group of survivors, maybe as few as 10,000 people, refused to die out. This is the closest humanity has ever come to disappearing completely. 74,000 years ago, on the island of Sumatra, a volcano erupted with a force no human has ever witnessed since. It's called Toba. And it wasn't just an eruption. It was one of the largest volcanic events in the last 2 million years. The blast was so massive, it didn't just destroy the island around it. It changed the entire planet. Ash shot 25 miles into the sky. Within days, that ash had spread across South Asia, coating the ground in a layer so thick that some places received over 15 centimeters of volcanic debris. Sunlight couldn't reach the surface properly for months. Some scientists believe global temperatures dropped by as much as 10 degrees Celsius in the years that followed, plunging the Earth into what researchers now call a volcanic winter. Picture what that actually meant for the humans living at the time. No sunlight strong enough to grow food properly. Freezing temperatures in regions that were never built for cold. Rivers and lakes disrupted. Animals dying off in mass numbers because their food sources vanished too. For early Homo sapiens, who were already just one species scattered thinly across parts of Africa and Asia, this wasn't a bad year. This was a direct threat to the survival of the entire species. This is where the Toba catastrophe theory comes in. Geneticists studying human DNA noticed something strange. Modern humans have remarkably low genetic diversity compared to other species that have existed for a similar amount of time. Chimpanzees, who share the majority of their DNA with us, actually have more genetic variation across their population than humans do, despite there being far more humans alive today. That's unusual, and scientists believe they know why. When researchers modeled population history using genetic data, they found evidence of a massive population bottleneck around the same time as the Toba eruption. A bottleneck means the population didn't just shrink, it nearly collapsed. Some estimates suggest the global human population dropped to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 breeding individuals. To put that in perspective, that's smaller than the population of many small towns today. That was the entire human race. Every single person alive on Earth right now, all 8 billion of us, may trace back to that surviving group. Every language, every culture, every civilization ever built. All of it exists because a few thousand people found a way to survive when the planet turned against them. So how did they do it? How does any species survive something powerful enough to end it? Some of the strongest evidence comes from the southern coast of Africa, in a place called Pinnacle Point. Archaeologists excavating caves there found something remarkable. Evidence that a small group of humans survived the harshest period by relying on the ocean. While much of the interior of Africa became a freezing, resource-starved wasteland, coastal regions still had access to shellfish, edible plants, and marine resources that didn't disappear the way inland food sources did. These early survivors weren't just lucky. They were adaptable. They figured out how to harvest food from tide pools. They developed early tools for cracking shellfish. Researchers even found evidence of early symbolic behavior at these sites, things like pigment use, suggesting that even during a fight for survival, these humans were still capable of complex thought and early forms of culture. This is one of the most important lessons hidden inside this story. Human survival was never really about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about adaptability. When the environment shifted violently and without warning, the humans who survived weren't the ones who tried to fight the change. They were the ones who found a new way to live inside it. Not every scientist agrees on how severe the Toba event actually was for humans. Some newer research has challenged parts of the original catastrophe theory, arguing that certain human populations in Africa may not have been affected as dramatically as once believed, and that the genetic bottleneck might have started before the eruption or been caused by a combination of factors rather than the volcano alone. Science is still working through the exact details, but even in the most conservative interpretations, one fact remains widely accepted. Humanity went through a population crash so severe that it reshaped our entire genetic story, and we are all descendants of the small number of people who made it through. Think about what that means for you personally. Somewhere in that surviving group of a few thousand people, thousands of generations ago, there were people who felt fear, who felt cold, who watched their environment collapse around them and had every reason to believe they wouldn't make it. And they made it anyway. Every single trait that helped them survive, the ability to adapt, to problem solve under extreme pressure, to work together in small groups when resources were scarce, all of that got passed down. It's still inside you right now. This is also why some scientists believe humans are naturally wired for certain behaviors that seem strange in the modern world. Our instinct to stockpile food when we're anxious. Our tendency to bond tightly with small, trusted groups rather than large crowds. Our deep discomfort with uncertainty and sudden change. These aren't random personality quirks. They may be echoes of a time when uncertainty and sudden change were the difference between life and death for the entire species. The Toba eruption wasn't the only near-extinction event in human history either. Long before Toba, our ancestors likely faced other population crashes due to climate shifts, disease, and competition with other early human species like Neanderthals and Denisovans. Humanity's story isn't a straight line of steady progress. It's a series of near misses, moments where the entire timeline could have ended, but didn't. And that's what makes this story so strange to sit with. If the eruption had been slightly larger, if that small group on the African coast hadn't figured out how to survive off the ocean, if the volcanic winter had lasted just a few years longer than it did, none of this would exist. Not you, not the person sitting next to you, not a single city, language, or piece of technology on this entire planet. We tend to think of human history as inevitable, like humans were always destined to spread across the globe and build the world we see today. But the truth is far more fragile than that. We came dangerously close to never getting the chance at all. So the next time life feels overwhelming, the next time everything seems to be falling apart at once, remember this. Your ancestors faced something far worse than anything you're dealing with today. Not a bad day, not a stressful week, the literal collapse of the world as they knew it. And they didn't just survive it, they rebuilt from it. You are not just descended from strong people. You were descended from the most adaptable people who ever lived, people who looked at a dying world and found a way to keep going anyway. That resilience isn't ancient history. It's written into you. If this changed how you think about human history, subscribe to StickEvolution. Every week, we uncover the ancient moments that shaped who we are today, one stick figure at a time.